Fall 1978, Whitmore, Massachusetts. Hartwell Women's College dormitory on Prescott Avenue. The junior returns at 11:30 p.m. and discovers the entrance locked. She knocks. The door opens to reveal the night supervisor, a retired police detective with a flashlight and a logbook. He records her name, room number, time of violation, and says, "Come see me tomorrow in my office. We need to discuss your future here." She doesn't know this conversation will end with an offer to work off her violation in his basement apartment. She doesn't know 22 other young women have worked off violations the same way over the past 4 years. She doesn't know the photographs she'll find hidden in his desk will become evidence that destroys an empire of fear built by a man with a badge. How did an ordinary retired cop transform a dormitory into his personal hunting ground? Why did the administration ignore complaints for years? And what happened when one student decided silence was no longer an option? If you're loving the content, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss us in your recommendations. We upload new, exciting videos every day. Thank you for watching. Let's get into it. Daphne Caldwell stood before the heavy oak door of Prescott Hall and realized she was late. Her Timex watch, a high school graduation gift from her aunt, read 11:32 p.m. Curfew ended at 11 sharp. She was 32 minutes late, but those 32 minutes could cost her everything. October in western Massachusetts came cold and unforgiving this year. Wind swept down from the Berkshires, carrying the smell of rotting leaves and approaching winter. Daphne was frozen to the bone. Her light pea coat, which had seemed so stylish that morning, offered no protection now. She'd just returned from the Whitmore Public Library, where she'd been researching her senior thesis on women's suffrage. Time had slipped away. She'd looked up only when the librarian began her closing rounds. She'd run 6 blocks. The bus had pulled away just as she reached the stop. The next one didn't come for 40 minutes. She'd waited in the cold, watching her watch, praying she'd make it. But she hadn't. Daphne pressed the buzzer. A dull, echoing ring sounded somewhere inside the building. She waited. 1 minute. 2. Behind her, autumn wind chased dead leaves across the empty quad. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The dormitory windows glowed with warm yellow light. Behind those windows, girls from her class were probably drinking tab, eating popcorn, discussing boys and the new Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. And she stood outside like a leper. She pressed the buzzer again, more insistently. Then she heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, measured footsteps approaching from the other side. A key scraped in the lock. The deadbolt slid back with an ugly screech. The door cracked open the width of a palm. A face appeared in the gap. Clayton Merrick, night supervisor of Prescott Hall, looked at Daphne from the darkness of the vestibule. He was 63 years old, but looked 70. Heavy face, sagging jowls, bags under his eyes. Gray hair slicked back with Brill cream. Small, watery eyes stared out from under bushy brows with an expression Daphne couldn't quite identify. It wasn't just disapproval. It was something else. Something predatory. He wore his uniform, tan slacks, white shirt with a Hartwell College security patch, though he'd retired from the Whitmore Police Department 5 years ago. He wore it always, even during daytime room inspections. The uniform gave him authority. The uniform reminded everyone who he was. Detective Clayton Merrick, retired. 30 years on the force. Commendations for distinguished service. "You're late," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, with a Boston accent that had been worn down over decades to something flatter, harder. "Mr. Merrick, I'm so sorry," Daphne began, her voice shaking from cold and fear. "I was at the library, lost track of time. Thesis, research. Please, I won't let it happen again." Merrick said nothing. He studied her with a long, appraising look. Then he pulled a worn brown leather notebook from his shirt pocket along with a pencil stub. "Name," he said. "Caldwell." "Full name." "Daphne Marie Caldwell." "Year, room number?" "Junior, room 307. Merrick slowly, carefully formed the letters in his notebook. Daphne could see his fingers trembling slightly. Old age tremor. But his handwriting was steady, neat, like in police reports. "Time of violation, 11:32 p.m. He looked up at her. "First time?" "Yes, Mr. Merrick, I swear. First time. I'm always on time." This was true. In 2.5 years at Hartwell, Daphne had never missed curfew. She was on the dean's list, treasurer of the Student Government Association, recipient of a partial scholarship. She didn't party, rarely dated, didn't drink. Her entire life was focused on one goal: graduate summa cum laude, get into a top graduate program, become the first person in her family to earn a PhD. "First time," Merrick repeated. There was mockery in his voice. "So you don't know the rules?" "I know the rules, Mr. Merrick. They're posted." "They're posted," he interrupted, "and you broke them. Breaking curfew means a written violation. A violation goes on your record. On your record means loss of privileges. Loss of privileges means probation. Probation means you lose your scholarship. Understand?" Daphne felt ice in her veins. Without the scholarship, she couldn't afford tuition. Her father was a mechanic, her mother a supermarket cashier. They had 3 other kids. The $800 partial scholarship was the difference between staying and leaving. "Mr. Merrick, but it was only 32 minutes. "The bus didn't come on time. I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to." Merrick snapped the notebook shut. "They never mean to. But rules are rules. You understand, young lady, I maintain order here. 30 years on the force, I was trained by the book. Discipline is sacred. You start making exceptions, everyone gets lazy. Then what? Then boys start sneaking in, alcohol, drugs, worse. I answered to the dean for this place." Daphne said nothing. Tears pressed at her throat, but she held them back. Crying was forbidden. She'd heard from other girls that Merrick liked when they cried, that it only encouraged him. "Mr. Merrick, is there any way I can make this right? I'm willing to do extra duty, cleaning, whatever you need, just please, not a written violation." Merrick was silent. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Well, since you're so eager to make amends, I suppose we could work something out. Come see me tomorrow in my office. We'll discuss your options. Say 8 p.m. after your classes. Agreed?" "Agreed, Mr. Merrick. Thank you so much." He stepped aside, opening the door wider. Daphne slipped inside. The vestibule was dim. Only one ceiling bulb burned. The security desk stood empty. Merrick locked the door with 2 turns of the key and the deadbolt. Daphne heard the heavy lock click. The sound was final, like an axe falling. She moved toward the stairs. Then Merrick called after her. "Caldwell!" She turned. Merrick stood by the door, a massive dark silhouette against the weak light. "Don't be late tomorrow. 8 o'clock. Sharp. Clear?" "Clear, Mr. Merrick." Daphne climbed to the 3rd floor. Her legs felt like rubber. Her heart pounded. She pushed open the door to room 307. Inside, the desk lamp glowed. Her roommate, Vera, was sitting on her bed with a textbook. "You're back," Vera said. Then she looked closer. "Jesus, Daph, you're white as a sheet." Daphne sank onto her bed. She took off her coat with trembling hands. "I was late," she whispered. "Merrick caught me." Vera went pale. The textbook fell from her hands. "And?" "He wrote me up. Told me to come to his office tomorrow night to discuss it." "His office?" Vera's eyes widened. "Daphne, you can't go." "What do you mean I can't go? He told me to." "Don't go, I'm telling you." Vera stood, walked to the door, checked the hallway, made sure no one was there. closed, and locked it. Then she sat next to Daphne on the bed and spoke in a rapid, frightened whisper.
Daph, you don't know. You're always so perfect, never break rules, but I know. Everyone knows, they just don't talk. When he calls you to his office, it's not just a conversation, it's... She fell silent. Fear was in her eyes, real, animal fear. It's what? Daphne asked, her lips going numb. Vera hugged herself. Rowena Pritchard. Remember her? Senior, 2 years ago. Yeah, tall girl, red hair? Her. Merrick caught her just like this, late coming back from a date,
Called her to his office, and there he made her come to his place. Made her do what? Vera didn't answer. She stared at the floor. Vera, made her do what?
Come to his apartment. Basement apartment in the building. Said either that or he'd write her up and she'd lose everything. Rowena panicked. Her dad had just died. Her mom was sick. Without financial aid, she was done. So she went. And there, Daphne felt her blood run cold. What happened there? Nothing physical. He just made her clean. Scrub floors, wash dishes, do laundry. 4 hours of work like a servant. And he sat there watching, telling her this was her restitution. That this is how she'd work off the violation. That if she was late again, she'd have to come back and do more. More like what? Vera looked at her. In her eyes was such sadness and such shame that Daphne understood without words. He didn't touch Rowena, Vera continued. But there were others. Nadine Porter. Remember when she withdrew second semester sophomore year? Said she was sick. Bullshit. Merrick destroyed her. She was late. He called her in. She went. He gave her the same choice, work it off or get written up. She refused to work it off. He filed the violation. She got called to the dean, then to the disciplinary committee. Lost her scholarship, then got put on probation. She couldn't take it. She left. Daphne slowly shook her head. Why didn't anyone say anything? Why didn't anyone complain? Complain to who? He's a retired police detective. He's got connections with the Whitmore PD, with the town council, everywhere. And we're who? College girls. They'd kick us out in a heartbeat. Who would believe us against him? Daphne stood. She walked to the window. Outside, the autumn night was black. A few windows in neighboring buildings glowed with cozy light. Somewhere down there, on the basement level of the building, was Merrick's apartment. 2 rooms, kitchenette. He lived alone. His wife had died 3 years ago, no children. I'm not going, Daphne said. Then he'll file the violation. You'll get called to the dean. I'll tell the dean everything. He won't believe you. Merrick's been here 4 years. There's never been an official complaint. Because everyone's too scared. You go in there and say he's blackmailing you, Merrick will say you're lying to avoid responsibility. Who will they believe? You or him? Daphne turned. Vera's face showed sympathy and hopelessness. What about you? Daphne asked. Have you ever been late? Vera looked away. Once, last year, got back late from student teaching. He called me in. I went. Cleaned his place for 2 hours. He sat there, watched, and talked about his police work. About interrogations, about breaking suspects. The things he said. Vera shuddered. I never miss curfew anymore. Ever. Daphne lay down on her bed without undressing. She stared at the ceiling. Overhead hung a paper banner they'd made for the start of the semester. Cheerful, colorful letters. Junior year! Now it seemed like a cruel joke. Vera turned off the light. In the darkness, only breathing could be heard. Daph, Vera whispered, if you go, just do what he says and get out. Don't argue. Don't make him angry. That only makes it worse. Daphne didn't answer. She lay in the dark thinking about her parents, about her younger siblings, about her plans, about graduating Summa, about her future. And she understood that tomorrow all of it could collapse because of 32 minutes and a sick old man with a notebook. One floor below in the basement apartment, Clayton Merrick sat at his desk, opened his notebook, and reread the entry. Daphne Marie Caldwell, Jr., 307. Violation 11:32 p.m. Then he smiled. Caldwell was fresh meat, clean-cut, straight-A, serious student. Those types took longer to break, but once broken, they served well. He set the notebook aside and opened his desk drawer. Inside was a stack of Polaroid photos, photos of young women. 22 photos over 4 years. He took out a blank index card and wrote, Caldwell, D.M., October 1978. Tomorrow he'd get her photo. For his records, of course. For his collection. Daphne spent the next day in a fog. Lectures passed by her. The seminar on American literature, which she'd prepared for all week, went without her participation. The professor called on her twice, but she answered incoherently. Classmates looked at her with surprise. Daphne Caldwell, straight-A student who always had the answers, seemed absent today. At 6 p.m. she returned to the dorm, 2 hours until the meeting with Merrick. Vera had gone home for the weekend. In the room, Daphne was alone. She sat on her bed and tried to calm down. Her plan was simple. Go to Merrick, talk to him, explain the situation. She hoped it would end with just a warning. After all, she really was only 32 minutes late, and this was her first offense. But deep down she knew that hope was thin. Vera's story haunted her. Rowena Pritchard, Nadine Porter. How many others? How many young women had passed through Merrick's office and now kept silent out of fear? At 7:45 p.m., Daphne went downstairs. The hallway was empty. Everyone had scattered to their rooms, studying for Monday classes, reading, chatting. Life flowed normally. Only for Daphne had time stopped. The supervisor's office was at the end of the hallway, next to the back entrance. The door was old, covered in dark brown vinyl. Above it hung a sign, Night Supervisor, authorized personnel only. Daphne stood before the door, then knocked. Come in, came Merrick's gravelly voice. Daphne entered. The office was small, maybe 12 by 12 feet. Along one wall stood a desk covered in papers. Behind the desk in a chair sat Merrick in his uniform. On the walls hung certificates, plaques, framed photos. Photos of young Merrick in police uniform, Merrick with fellow cops, Merrick next to a black and white cruiser. Everything official, everything proper. In the corner stood an old, worn couch covered in green vinyl. On the windowsill sat dusty plastic plants. The only other furniture was a filing cabinet and a coat rack with Merrick's jacket. Close the door, Merrick said. Daphne closed it. The lock clicked dully. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Come closer. She approached the desk. Merrick leaned back in his chair. He looked at her from below, squinting. His small, watery eyes slid across her face, figure, clothes. Daphne felt that gaze like a touch, sticky, repulsive. Sit. She sat in the chair facing the desk. Merrick opened his notebook, found yesterday's entry. Daphne Marie Caldwell, Jr., Dean's List, Student Government Treasurer, partial scholarship. He looked up. Correct? Correct, Mr. Merrick. From working-class family. Father's a mechanic, mother's a cashier, 3 younger siblings. Can't afford tuition without the scholarship, right? Daphne went cold. How did he know about her family? Merrick smirked, seeing her surprise. I don't just sit here for nothing. I keep files on every student. Police training. Need to know who you're dealing with. Look,
He opened the desk drawer, pulled out a manila folder. On the tab was written, Caldwell, DM, DOB 31257. Inside were photocopies of her enrollment forms, references, financial aid application, a copy of her student ID photo. As you can see, I know you well. Know that school is your ticket out of poverty. Know that you can't afford to mess up. One mistake, and you're gone. Understand? Daphne nodded. Her throat tightened. Good. Merrick closed the folder. Now let's talk about what you did. Breaking curfew is a serious violation of residence hall policy. By the rules, I should file a report with student affairs. They'll forward it to the disciplinary committee. You'll get a hearing, probably lose privileges, maybe lose the scholarship. If it happens again, you're out. But, he paused. Daphne stared at him, afraid to miss a word. But I'm not heartless. I understand mistakes happen. You're a good student. Work hard. I'm willing to look the other way. Forget the violation. Erase it from the book. He tapped the notebook with his finger. But you need to do something for me in return. Do what? Daphne asked. Merrick stood from the desk. He walked to the window, lit a cigarette. Smoke drifted in blue rings toward the ceiling. See, I live alone down here. Wife died 3 years ago. No kids. 2-room apartment, but I don't keep it up like I should. Man living alone, you understand. And I'm 63 now. Health isn't what it was. Back hurts, blood pressure's up. So I thought, since you violated the rules, you can work it off. Come to my apartment, clean up. Mop the floors, wash dishes, dust. 3 hours of work and we're even. I erase the record, you're free. No violation, no hearing. Deal? Daphne felt the ground disappear beneath her. This was it. Exactly what happened to Rowena, to Nadine, to the others. First cleaning. And then what? Mr. Merrick, maybe there's another way. Maybe I could do extra duty here in the dorm or volunteer for a weekend project. Merrick's face darkened. What? You don't like my offer? No, it's just... Just what? He stepped closer. Now he stood very near. Daphne could smell cigarette smoke, Old Spice cologne, and age. You think I want something inappropriate from you? You think I'm some dirty old man chasing girls? No, I didn't mean... You didn't mean it, but you're implying it. Merrick's voice turned hard. I worked 30 years in law enforcement. I dedicated my life to order and justice. I was trained to respect the law. And now some college girl is suggesting I'm some kind of pervert. Mr. Merrick, that's not what I meant. Shut up, he barked. You broke the rules. You messed up. I'm offering you an honest way to make it right. Work it off. Like community service, like criminals do. Labor redeems mistakes. That's American justice. And you what? You're turning your nose up? Think you're above it? Daphne was silent. Her hands shook. Here's what I'll tell you, Caldwell. Merrick returned to his desk. He picked up a pen, pulled out a violation form. Right now, I'm writing you up. Writing that you broke curfew. Writing that during our conversation you were insolent, argumentative, showed no remorse. Writing that I consider you a disciplinary risk and recommend probation with loss of scholarship. I sign it. Tomorrow, I take it to Student Affairs. Within a week, you're in front of the committee. And that's it. End of your college career, end of your plans, end of everything. Got it? Daphne sat frozen. Or, Merrick set down the pen, or you come to your senses. Tomorrow, Saturday, 10 a.m., my apartment. You clean. Quiet, simple. 3 hours of work and you're clear. I tear up your name. Nobody ever knows. What's it going to be? Daphne looked up at him. In Merrick's eyes was the cold certainty of a man who knows he's won. He'd seen hundreds like her.
In interrogation rooms, in booking cells, in police stations. People backed into corners. People with no choice. "I'll come," Daphne whispered. "Can't hear you." "I'll come, Mr. Merrick. Tomorrow at 10. "That's better," Merrick smiled. "So we have a deal. Tomorrow at 10, basement apartment, door at the end of the hall past the laundry room. Knock quietly. I'll let you in. And Caldwell." "Yes?" "Not a word to anyone. This is between us. Clear?" "Clear." "You're dismissed." Daphne stood and left the office. Her legs were rubber. In the hallway she stopped, leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Her heart pounded so violently she felt nauseous. What had she done? She'd agreed to go to his apartment, alone. What would happen there? What would he make her do? At that moment, a girl emerged from the bathroom in a robe, towel wrapped around her hair. It was Imogen, or Jeannie, a senior, tall, thin, sharp features. She saw Daphne frozen against the wall, pale. "Caldwell, you sick?" Jeannie asked. Daphne shook her head. "No, I'm fine." Jeannie came closer. She looked at Daphne carefully, then glanced at Merrick's office door. "You were in there with Merrick?" Daphne nodded. Jeannie smiled bitterly. "I see. Broke curfew?" "Yeah." "And what? He wants you to come to his place?" Daphne nodded again. She had no strength to speak. Jeannie sighed. She looked around, made sure the hallway was empty, and said quietly, "Don't go. He'll file the violation. Let him." "You go to the dean. Tell them what he's doing. Say he's blackmailing you." "The dean won't believe me. He will if you're not alone, if others back you up." Jeannie paused. "I'll back you up." Daphne looked at her in surprise. "You? Me? He did the same thing to me 2 years ago. I was late coming back from an off-campus party. He told me to come work it off. I went, cleaned his place for 4 hours. He sat there, smoked, watched. Didn't touch me, but the things he said." Jeannie shuddered. Talked about interrogations, about breaking people, about getting off on power. I was 20 then, scared out of my mind. Did what he wanted and never broke curfew again. But it's wrong. We shouldn't have to take this. "Did you complain?" "No. Too scared. But now I'm a senior, graduating in May. I've got nothing to lose. You've got 2 more years here. Don't stay silent. Let's go to the dean." Daphne looked at Jeannie. Warmth spread through her chest. So she wasn't alone. There were others willing to speak. "But what if the dean doesn't believe us?" "Then we go higher, to the college president, to the board, to the police. I'm serious. I'm sick of this. How long do we let this creep operate?" They stood in the hallway, 2 college students, and between them a plan was forming, a plan of resistance. But at that moment, Merrick's door opened. He emerged and saw them. His face darkened. "Caldwell, I said not a word to anyone. Or are you disobeying already?" "No, Mr. Merrick, we were just talking about classes." "About classes." He looked at Jeannie. "And you, Morrison, what are you hanging around for?" "Going to my room," Jeannie answered coolly. "Then go. And don't gossip. I know you girls, always running your mouths. No discipline." Jeannie deliberately turned and walked toward the stairs. Daphne followed her. Merrick watched them go. His small eyes were cold and mean. He sensed something was off. Caldwell should have left scared and broken, like all the others. But she was talking to Morrison. Morrison, who'd always been too bold, too independent. Who, when she'd come to his place 2 years ago, had looked at him with such contempt he'd wanted to hit her. Merrick returned to his office.
He sat at his desk and lit another cigarette. He needed to be careful. Maybe he should let Caldwell go, write her up and forget it. But no, he couldn't back down. If he showed weakness now, the girls would sense it, start to rebel. No, Caldwell would come tomorrow, he was sure. Fear was stronger than pride. On the third floor, Daphne and Jeannie went into Jeannie's room. Jeannie pulled a blue spiral notebook from under her mattress. "Look," she said, "I've been keeping records. Since the day I went to his place, writing down everything I hear about Merrick. Names of girls who went to him, dates, stories." Daphne opened the notebook. On the first page was written, "Clayton Merrick's crimes." Below that, a list, 22 names. Rowena Pritchard, October 1976. Nadine Porter, March 1977. Vera Hathaway, September 1977. Each name accompanied by brief notes: forced cleaning, psychological abuse, threats of expulsion. 22 girls in 4 years, Jeannie said. Those are just the ones I found out about. There are probably more. Many left, stayed silent. But these 22 are enough. This is systematic, not random. He deliberately traps girls who break rules and turns them into his servants. Yeah, he doesn't rape them, but it's psychological abuse, it's humiliation, and it's a crime. Daphne flipped through the notebook. Her hands trembled. "Jeannie, why didn't you come forward before?" "I was scared. Thought I was alone. But now I realize if we all stand together, they can't silence us. We go to the dean, tomorrow. Show him this notebook. Make them investigate." Daphne nodded. Hope bloomed in her chest. Maybe there was a way out. Maybe they could win. "But there's a problem," Jeannie said. "We need proof. The notebook is good, but it's just my word. The girls on this list might refuse to confirm. They're afraid. We need something stronger, evidence or witnesses." Daphne thought. Then it hit her. "What if I go tomorrow?" "Are you crazy?" "No, listen. I go, but I take a camera. One of those small ones, hide it in my bag. Take pictures of his place, of him. Maybe catch him saying something incriminating. That would be evidence." Jeannie looked at her with admiration. "Daph, that's brilliant. It could work, but aren't you scared?" "I'm terrified. But if I don't do this, who will? How many more girls will he destroy?" They hugged. That night, Daphne barely slept. She lay in the dark, planning. A camera. Tomorrow, she'd go see Beth Kowalski, who lived upstairs. Beth was a photography student, always had cameras. One of those small Kodak Instamatics, maybe. Small enough to hide in a purse. Morning. Saturday. Daphne woke at 7, though the appointment wasn't until 10. She needed time to prepare. Vera was still at her parents' house. Daphne dressed, tidied the room, ate breakfast in the dining hall. Then she went up to the 4th floor to Beth's room. "Beth, can I borrow your camera? Need to take some photos for a project." Beth, a cheerful girl with glasses, handed over her Kodak Instamatic without questions. "Sure, here. It's loaded with fresh film, 24 exposures. Just click and it advances automatically." Daphne returned to her room, checked the camera. It worked, small enough to fit in her shoulder bag. She put the camera in the bag, covered it with a scarf. Perfect. At 9:55, Daphne went downstairs. Her heart raced. Her stomach churned with fear. But she forced herself forward. She walked through the hallway, past the laundry room, to the end where a plain door marked Maintenance stood. Behind it were stairs leading down to the basement level. She descended. The basement was dimly lit, smelling of old pipes and detergent. At the end of the corridor was another door with a small nameplate. C. Merrick. A window beside it glowed with light. Daphne knocked softly. Footsteps sounded inside. The door opened. Merrick stood on the threshold in casual clothes, gray slacks, white undershirt. Without his uniform, he looked even older. Skin sagged on his neck, belly protruded. "You came," he said with satisfaction. "Right on time. Good. Come in." Daphne entered. The door closed behind her. She heard the lock click. Her heart leapt. She was trapped. Merrick's apartment was small but cluttered. A narrow entryway filled with coats and hats. A corridor lined with photographs. Door to the left, kitchenette. Door to the right, living room. Door straight ahead, bedroom. This way. Merrick led her to the right. The living room. A large table covered with newspapers, an old bureau, a couch, a recliner, a TV set, rug on the wall with a nature scene, smell of cigarettes and mustiness. "You'll clean here. Bucket and mop in the kitchen, water from the sink. Mop all the floors, then dishes, then dust everything. 3 hours of work. Do it right, and you're free." Daphne nodded. She left her bag with the camera on a chair near the door. The camera was positioned to potentially capture the room. She couldn't actually take photos without being obvious, but maybe she could document something. "Mr. Merrick, can I ask you something?" she said. "Ask." "What if I don't finish, or do something wrong?" Merrick smirked. "Then you'll have to come back. Again and again until you get it right. I'm demanding. Comes from police work. Everything has to be by the book." "And if I refuse to come back?" Merrick's face darkened. "What kind of questions are these, Caldwell? You agreed to this. I offered you a way to work off your violation. You accepted. That's our deal." "You trying to back out?" "No. I just want to understand. This isn't exactly legal, is it? Making students clean your apartment?" Merrick slowly rose from the recliner. His eyes narrowed. "Listen here, smartass. Let me explain how this works. You broke the rules. That's a fact. By rights, I should punish you officially. But I'm offering an alternative. Instead of official punishment, unofficial service. You do me a favor, I do you a favor. Fair trade. Human decency. And you start playing lawyer with me. But if you don't agree, I file the violation. And I note that you were not just late, but insubordinate during our meeting. Argumentative, showed no remorse, behaved disrespectfully. I'll write such a damning report that you won't just lose your scholarship. You'll be kicked out entirely. You think I don't have pull in this town? I've got connections, girl. One word from me and you're gone so fast you won't know what hit you. Clear?" "Yes, Mr. Merrick." "Good." He sat back down. "So stop asking questions. Get to work. Clock's ticking." Daphne went to the kitchenette. Her heart pounded so hard her temples throbbed. She hadn't managed to get photos, but maybe... She grabbed the bucket and mop, filled it with water. Her mind raced. There had to be some way to get evidence. She returned to the living room. Merrick sat in his recliner, smoking, watching her. Daphne knelt and began mopping the floor. The work was humiliating. Cold, dirty water, heavy, wet mop. Her hands turned red immediately. Merrick sat and commented, "You missed that corner. You're not wringing it out enough. Do it again. Come on, don't be lazy. See, you're useless at this. Bet your mother did everything for you at home. Now you're learning. That's how girls used to be raised, through work. These days you're all spoiled. Think you'll get your degree and that's it. Can't clean, can't cook. What kind of wives will you make?" Daphne stayed silent. She mopped, moving from room to room. Merrick followed her, commenting, pointing out missed spots. Time crawled. An hour. 90 minutes. Finally, the floors were done. "Now the dishes," Merrick said. In the kitchenette, a mountain of dirty dishes filled the sink. Pots, pans, plates, grease, stuck food. Daphne put on an apron hanging on a nail and started washing. The water was cold. There was barely any soap. Her hands burned. Merrick stood in the doorway watching. You know, Caldwell, I like you, he said suddenly. Quiet, obedient, not like some of them. Had one girl, Pritchard, red-haired, uppity, came here thinking she was smart. I told her to clean. She got all prissy, thought I was going to touch her. Stupid. I don't need that. I need something else.
What?
Daphne asked, still washing dishes. Obedience. Respect. Understand? All my life, I gave orders. At the police department, I had 20 officers under me. I was a detective, interrogated suspects, broke them. It's an art, psychological. You need to know where to press, what someone's afraid of. Some people, it's family, some health, some reputation. You find the weak spot and push, and they break. Sign whatever you want, say whatever you want. You think everyone I sent to prison was guilty? Hell no. Half of them were innocent. But we had quotas, clearance rates. So we'd grab someone, break them in interrogation, and they'd confess. Daphne listened, feeling sick. This man was confessing to crimes, to framing people, to torture, and he spoke of it calmly, with pride. Then I retired. Thought that was it. Sit at home, watch TV, wait to die. Boring. Then they offered me this job, dormitory supervisor. I accepted. Thought it'd be nothing, easy work. Turned out to be a gold mine. College girls, young, naive, scared. One mistake and they're in my hands, and I can do whatever I want with them. Not physically, no. Psychologically. Make them clean, make them grovel, make them fear me. That's the rush, you understand? Daphne turned. Merrick leaned against the doorframe. His face was relaxed. He was talking like in confession. Mr. Merrick, but that's wrong. Who says it's wrong? I'm not raping anyone. I don't lay a finger on them. I just require them to work off their violations. That's fair. You break the rule, you pay. Labor redeems guilt. American principle. But you scare us, threaten us with expulsion. So what? I'm in a position of authority. My job is to maintain discipline. If I'm not strict, this place would be chaos. So everything's correct. Everything's legal. Daphne finished the dishes. Her hands were raw. She dried them on a towel. Now dust everywhere, Merrick said. There's a rag. All the rooms. The next hour, Daphne dusted. Merrick walked with her, continuing to talk. Stories about his life, his career, girls who'd come before. He named names, dates. But without a recording device, it was all just words that would vanish. Finally, the work was done. The clock showed 1 p.m. 3 hours had passed. Done, Daphne said. Merrick inspected the apartment, checked, nodded. Not bad. For a first-timer. You can go. Daphne grabbed her bag with the camera, unused, useless. Merrick walked her to the door. Remember, Caldwell, not a word to anyone. This is our secret, got it? Got it. Good. And one more thing. If you're late again, you come back. Understood? Daphne nodded. She left the apartment. The door slammed behind her. She walked through the basement corridor, up the stairs, through the hallway, holding her bag like it contained treasure. But it didn't. The camera had no photos. She had no evidence. In her room, Daphne sat on her bed and cried. She'd done it, gone to his place, cleaned for 3 hours, listened to his sick confessions, and she had nothing. No proof. Just her word against his. A knock on the door. Jeannie entered. So? Daphne shook her head. I couldn't get pictures. He was watching me the whole time. But Jeannie, the things he said. He talked about framing innocent people, about psychological torture, about getting off on power.
He's a monster. Jeannie sat beside her. Then we go to the dean anyway, with my notebook, with our testimonies. It's enough to start an investigation. Is it? It has to be. Monday morning, Daphne and Jeannie went to the Dean of Students' office. Dean Margaret Holbrook was a woman in her early 50s with short gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. She met with students on Mondays from 9 to 11. Daphne and Jeannie sat in the waiting area. Daphne clutched Jeannie's notebook. They'd spent all Sunday preparing, discussing what to say, how to present the information, what to do if the dean didn't believe them. Finally, the secretary called them. "Dean Holbrook will see you now." They entered the office. Large, bright room with a mahogany desk, university banners on the walls, bookshelf. Holbrook sat at her desk reviewing papers. She looked up. "Yes, ladies?" "Dean Holbrook, we're here to file a complaint against the night supervisor at Prescott Hall," Jeannie began. Holbrook frowned. "Against Mr. Merrick. What seems to be the problem?" "He's blackmailing students, forcing girls who break curfew to come to his apartment, clean for him, work like servants. He psychologically abuses them, threatens them with expulsion if they refuse." Holbrook leaned back in her chair. Her expression was skeptical. "Those are serious accusations. Do you have evidence?" Daphne placed the notebook on the desk. "This is a record. 22 names of girls he's victimized over 4 years. Each entry includes dates and what happened. I'm one of them. He made me go to his apartment Saturday, made me clean for 3 hours, and he said things about his police career, about breaking people, about enjoying the power." Holbrook opened the notebook, scanned it. Her face went pale. Then she looked up at the 2 young women before her. "Why hasn't anyone reported this before?" "Because everyone's terrified," Jeannie said. "He threatens us, says he has connections, that he'll destroy us if we talk. We're just college students. We have no power. Who would believe us against a retired cop?" Holbrook stood. She paced her office. "All right, I'll look into this. Thank you for coming forward. This requires immediate action. I'll speak with the college president today. Mr. Merrick will be suspended pending investigation. We'll interview the students on this list. If the allegations are substantiated, we'll involve law enforcement." "What about us?" Daphne asked. "Will we be in trouble?" Holbrook looked at her gently. "You won't be in trouble. On the contrary, you did the right thing. You protected other students. That takes courage. I'll make sure you can continue your studies without interference." They left the office. In the hallway, Daphne and Jeannie embraced. Tears streamed down their faces. "We did it," Daphne whispered. "Yeah, we did." The investigation began that afternoon. Dean Holbrook met with President Ashford. Merrick was called to the president's office. He was informed that allegations had been made against him for abuse of authority and psychological harassment of students. He was suspended with pay pending investigation. Merrick tried to object, said it was lies, that students were retaliating against him for being strict. But when they showed him the notebook with 22 names, he went pale. Then he tried to claim it was exaggerated, taken out of context. No one believed him. Over the next 2 weeks, the college conducted an internal investigation. A committee interviewed every girl on Jeannie's list. Many initially refused to talk. They were afraid. But when they learned Merrick was suspended and others were supporting them, they began to open up. The stories were similar. Violation, called to office, threats, offer to work it off. Coming to apartment, cleaning while he watched. Psychological pressure, humiliation. For some, it was once. For others, multiple times. One girl, Astrid Coleman, admitted she'd gone to Merrick's place 8 times in 1 year. He kept finding violations. Late, unauthorized guest, noise complaint. Every time he demanded she come work it off. She was from a foster home with nowhere to go. She endured, but it broke her. She started drinking, stopped attending classes. Eventually, she was expelled for academic failure. Now she worked as a waitress in town. The committee founder invited her to testify. Astrid told her story. It was devastating. Another girl, Eloise Brennan, said Merrick didn't stop at cleaning. He demanded increasingly degrading tasks, made her come at odd hours, called her repeatedly. When she tried to refuse, he filed against her. She was removed from student government, lost her scholarship, then expelled. She appealed but was denied. Merrick had testified that she was promiscuous, brought men to the dorm, drank alcohol. All lies. But they believed him. When all testimonies were collected, the picture was horrifying. 22 young women over 4 years, systematic blackmail, abuse of power, psychological torture. The college turned the case over to the Whitmore Police Department and the district attorney. Criminal charges were filed: abuse of authority, coercion, harassment. Merrick was arrested. He tried to deny everything, but there was too much evidence. Jeannie's notebook, testimony from 22 witnesses, his own violation logbook where he'd recorded every infraction, cross-referencing dates from the logbook with victim testimonies. Everything matched. In March 1979, Clayton Merrick stood trial. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. 22 victims testified. The courtroom was packed. Local newspapers covered it extensively. Retired detective accused of dormitory abuse. Former cop used badge to terrorize college women. Merrick's defense argued he was simply maintaining discipline, that the students were exaggerating, that there was no physical abuse. But the jury didn't buy it. He was found guilty on multiple counts of coercion and abuse of authority. In May 1979, Clayton Merrick was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The sentence wasn't as severe as many hoped. Some of the victims wanted more. But the judge noted Merrick's age, his previous service record, and the absence of physical assault. Still, 5 years in prison for a 63-year-old man was significant. Hartwell College publicly apologized to all victims. Students who'd been expelled because of Merrick were offered reinstatement. Those who'd lost scholarships received compensation. Daphne Caldwell and Imogen Morrison were awarded special recognition for moral courage. The case made headlines across Massachusetts. The Boston Globe ran a feature, How One Student's Courage Ended Years of Abuse. It told how 2 young women stood up to authority and exposed systematic corruption. Following the publicity, other colleges conducted reviews of their residence hall staff. Several other cases of misconduct were uncovered, though none as extensive as Merrick's. Hartwell implemented new policies. Supervisors could no longer unilaterally impose sanctions. All violations had to be logged and reviewed by a committee. Students were given direct access to file complaints with student affairs, bypassing dorm supervisors. A confidential hotline was established. Daphne graduated summa cum laude in 1980. She got into Yale for graduate school, earned her PhD in American history, became a professor, married, had 2 children. All her life she remembered that October night in 1978 when she was 32 minutes late and fell into a predator's trap. And she remembered how she found the strength not to break. Imogen Morrison became a social worker specializing in abuse victims. She worked with young people who'd experienced trauma. She said her experience with Merrick taught her to understand victims, taught her to listen, taught her not to fear speaking truth. Vera Hathaway, Daphne's roommate, graduated and became a teacher. She spent her career thanking Daphne for having the courage. Rowena Pritchard, the red-haired senior who was Merrick's first victim, returned to college. She was reinstated. She finished her degree, became a journalist. She wrote extensively about institutional abuse, about power dynamics, about how silence enables predators. Her work in the 1980s helped bring attention to issues of campus sexual harassment and assault.
Clayton Merrick served 3 years of his 5-year sentence before dying of a heart attack in prison in 1982. Few mourned. His obituary in the Whitmore Gazette was brief, noting his police service and his conviction. Nothing more, but the memory of his victims endured. In 1985, Hartwell College installed a plaque in Prescott Hall. It read, "In memory of the courage of students who spoke out against abuse of power, 1978. Your voices changed this institution. Never be silent in the face of injustice." And every year, in October, on the anniversary of the day Daphne first went to Dean Holbrook, the college held a forum where students shared experiences, discussed problems they faced, learned about resources, where they were taught not to fear speaking up, not to fear defending themselves. Because the main lesson this story taught was simple. Evil prevails only when good people stay silent. But when one person speaks up, others follow. And together, they're stronger than any tyrant. Daphne Caldwell, an ordinary working-class college student, defeated a system. She succeeded because she refused to be afraid. She was 32 minutes late, walked into a trap, but didn't surrender. She reported what happened, stood with others, and said, "Enough." And she was heard. This isn't a story about how power corrupts. It's a story about how one person's courage can change many lives. About how even in the darkest situation, there's a way out if you find the strength to seek it. And about how a uniform, medals, and years of service don't make someone untouchable. A crime is a crime, no matter who commits it. Clayton Merrick spent 30 years hiding behind a police badge. He thought the badge would protect him, that his connections would save him, that fear would last forever. But he was wrong, because one young woman refused to be afraid. And that was enough. Epilogue, 2008. 30 years after the events, Hartwell College held a reunion. All of them came. Daphne with her husband and adult children, Jeannie, Rowena, Vera, and 12 others from that list. They sat around a table in the college cafeteria, drank coffee, remembered, laughed, and cried. They were no longer young students. They were in their 50s. Gray hair, lines on faces, grown children and grandchildren. But in their eyes was the same strength as 30 years before. The strength of survivors, of those who didn't break, who won. "You know, Daph," Jeannie said, holding her hand, "I sometimes think, what if you hadn't spoken up that day? If we hadn't gone to the dean?" Daphne smiled. "I don't know. But I know this. I couldn't stay silent. Couldn't let it continue. I was terrified, yeah. Thought I'd be expelled, that my life would fall apart. But I went anyway. Because I understood, if not me, then who?" "If not me, then who?" Rowena repeated. That should be everyone's motto, in any situation. When you see injustice, ask yourself, if I don't stop this, who will? They sat and talked until late into the night, then went their separate ways. But before leaving, they took a group photo. In the picture, 20 women of different ages, all smiling. Behind them, the memorial plaque. The photo now hangs in the Hartwell College Women's Center. Below it, the caption, "Heroes, October 1978. And whenever new students pass that photograph, they stop, read the story, and learn that courage doesn't depend on age, strength, or status. Courage is being afraid, but doing what's right anyway. Being one person against a system, but not backing down. Having a choice, silence or voice, and choosing voice. Daphne Caldwell was 32 minutes late in October 1978. Those 32 minutes could have destroyed her life. Instead, they changed hundreds of lives for the better. Because Daphne wasn't just a victim who survived. She was a hero who won. And her story is a reminder to all of us. Never stay silent when you see evil. Speak. Fight. Don't give up. Because one voice can change the world.